just didn't want to go on living the life I was living anymore. 2024 is when I really started to realize I needed to do that change again. The loneliness, drivers like it and hate it at the same time.
I do have some drivers that are in therapy pretty much just because of what the job does to you.
Welcome to Trucking with OOIDA. I'm Ashley Blackford.
And I'm Scott Thompson. Welcome,
doing,
everybody.
Scott?
Good. How's your mental health these days, Ashley?
You know what? It's better than it has been. I'll say that.
Okay.
Although it depends on the day, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's
yes.
the same for a lot of people out there, including myself. We are going to be talking mental health today with a couple of people who are well-versed in the topic. And it's one I think that is important to talk about because we are all of us, no matter who you are or where you come from, we're all dealing with something. Mm-hmm. And as we know, truck drivers lead, in a lot of cases, in most cases, I would say, stressful lives at times for a number of reasons. So we thought on the heels of National Mental Awareness Health Month, which is what January was.
Which really could be any month.
It could be any month. Yeah, it's like the day that ends in Y, you know.
Yes, exactly.
Kind of thing. So we're talking to a couple people today who, again, are well-versed in this. Shaun Lezer is a truck driver. Mm-hmm. He is a big advocate of mental and physical health.
Yes.
And has dealt with some difficulties in the past that he has since sort of confronted and dealt with.
I always appreciate when people have dealt with these things but are also like very open about them. And he's certainly one of those people, very willing to share and also really has a heart to help other truck drivers and people who have dealt with mental health. He definitely, I think sharing his story could help other people.
Yeah. It's one of these hard things too. When you're dealing with something, it can be hard to open up and talk about those things to people. But it really does help. And I know Shaun will talk about that a little bit, about how helpful it is for him or was for him to talk to other folks. And he now is kind of that person that encourages others to kind of open up to him and talk as well, because that really is important. So great conversation there with Shaun Lezer, truck driver and mental health advocate, among many other things. So looking forward to that. Yes. And then a friend of the show, we've talked to Buck Black a few times before.
I love talking to Buck Black. I can see, there's certain people you deal with and you're like, oh, that's why they do that job. That is Buck Black. He, to me, would make an excellent therapist. I can only assume. I've only interviewed him. I've never actually unloaded my problems on him. But I feel like he would handle them well.
Well, it's a good thing that he would make a good therapist because he is a good therapist. So we'll talk to him about some of the things, some of the strategies that people can use to, maybe not get past certain things, but at least, again, confront them and talk about them and work toward improving those things as well. Yeah. So a couple great conversations, some heavy topics we'll let you know ahead of time in some cases. But again, it is worth talking about with the goal of working things out together and getting past them. So with that, we will toss it to Shaun Lezer talking about a number of things. And here it is.
Shaun, where are you at today?
Just north of Salt Lake City, Utah, and Syracuse, Utah.
That's where you live?
Yeah.
Okay. What this week? What have you been up to as far as trucking wise?
I was in Atlanta, Georgia, on Monday. Then we flew to Dallas, Texas, and then I drove a semi truck from Dallas, Texas, to Salt Lake City, Utah.
Oh wow,
that's a lot of moving around. Is that part of your normal?
No. So I just got hired on with Chick-fil-A Supply out of Georgia, and they are doing a startup warehouse in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Oh, wow.
Neat.
That's cool.
Getting all the assets that moved over from Texas to Utah.
Wow.
So you're involved in moving everything.
Yeah.
That sounds like a tall task.
I was the very first driver hired.
Wow.
First interview, first hire. Yeah.
That sounds like a tall task.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. No, it's been a lot of fun though. They've treated me really, really well.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Is that what do you typically haul?
Food.
Food. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was working for In-N-Out Burger on the West Coast, delivering to their restaurants. I've been doing food service for about 3 years now.
Okay.
Okay.
Neat.
But before that, I was doing groceries for
Gotcha.
Albert.
When did you start trucking? How did you get started too?
2013, January of 2013, I got my CDL, and I just had my first son. He was 1 year old, and I just needed a career change, something that I knew would provide a steady income.
What did you do before that, if you don't mind me asking?
Working for like family businesses, doing, my father-in-law had a pressure washing company, but it was going downhill real quick. It wasn't a steady income.
What was it about trucking that you were like, this is, something you wanted to take on?
The traveling, really. Yeah.
You like to travel?
Yeah, I love to travel. Love it.
Yeah, and it sounds like you've gotten to do a lot of it.
Yes. Yeah. I've been all over Texas. In the last 2 months, I've been all over Texas. It's been awesome. And then we spent one day in Georgia at the corporate headquarters for Chick-fil-A.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
One of the reasons we reached out to you is to talk about a couple things. And I think mental health is one of them, because we know you're a big advocate for that in the trucking industry. I suppose we can just kind of start with a broad question too, just about how this became, a focus for you in the first place.
So I was thinking about that a lot over the last week, and how I was going to approach this podcast and what I was going to talk about. And I guess I'll start off the beginning. I built like a trauma resume. I've had a lot of trauma in my life, a lot. And so I guess the mental health side was just in the last 3 to 4 years, I've been trying to heal from all these traumas that have came into my life. So, it started out really young. I've probably in the 6th grade, I started experiencing traumas from my dad, who was an alcoholic, and a lot of mental, verbal abuse. And that's when I started to really develop depression. I started feeling depressed a lot. And that depression lasted my entire adult life up until about 3 years ago. So it's been pretty rough.
At what point do you recall like having those first thoughts of like, something's not right here, like with feeling depressed? And I think when we're older, we can kind of recognize, oh, that's what that was. Whereas maybe when you were in the 6th grade, I don't know if we had the terminology back then.
It was probably just a few years after 6th grade, maybe 8th grade, when I started realizing that comparing myself to other classmates and my peers, and realizing that I was more attracted to the bad kids than the kids that were wanting to study and get good grades and do the right thing. So that kind of mentality, I think, was a fix for my depression.
Well, and that realization too, when you come to that realization that you went through some stuff, is really the first step to starting to try to fix them. Yeah,
absolutely.
Do you remember that moment?
I was trying to heal from all the trauma.
Just the kind of what Ashley was talking about, the realization, because I think when you are younger, you're going, you go through things and you don't necessarily recognize it as being a traumatic incident or a traumatic thing, because it's just life, and you're a kid and you don't really know how to kind of categorize it. But at some point as adults, I feel like we hopefully get to a point where we recognize what happened was not a healthy thing, and then we can start kind of working toward fixing it or trying to address it at least.
Correct. So it was probably in my late 20s, I'd say 25 years old, that I tried getting help, because I had major addiction issues, alcohol and drugs. So that's where I just didn't want to go on living the life I was living anymore. Like, it was almost to the point of suicidal thoughts. So I knew I needed help. And so that's when I kind of reached out. I got some medical help. Then I went into some rehab facilities, and then getting counseling, one-on-one counseling for many, many years.
How hard was that to reach out for help?
Not too hard. My mom was really supportive. So I just kind of went to her and told her everything that was going on in my mind and life, and I just wanted to change. And she was her and my grandparents, which was her parents, they were very, very supportive in helping me get the help that I needed.
You're clearly in a better place now. Are you in a good place? Do you think?
Yeah. So, well, fast forward, we're missing a big part of my story. So, in my 30s, I was in a pretty good place. Yeah, I've been sober since 2015. So, but 2019, I had a very, very severe traumatic experience. My son was 6 months old. I put him down for a nap, and I came back 2 hours later, and he passed away in his bed, in his crib. So that was really traumatic, and it was hard to overcome that. And then 2 years later, both my parents passed away. So I would say in probably about 2024 is when I really started to realize I needed to do that change again, because I was extremely depressed and just laying in bed all day, not wanting to get out of bed, and it was affecting my work. I wasn't going to work, and I had changed a lot. Because of this depression, I was leaving jobs and changing jobs a lot, so I knew that I needed to get some help.
That decision, that's a big decision, obviously, after going through what you went through, and sorry,
Correct.
Obviously, to hear about all of that.
So that's why I said I have a trauma resume. That's my trauma resume right there. Kind of the cliff notes of my trauma resume.
Yeah. Well, and to that point too, I think it's easy is not the right word, but it's easy to maybe fall into a trap of letting the trauma define you.
Correct. That is correct.
Especially if you're not addressing it, but it doesn't define who you are, right? It's kind of how you respond to it and start moving forward. And you have made a conscious decision to try to push past all this stuff.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing that I noticed was after the loss of my son and my parents, instead of going to alcohol and drugs, I went to food. And so I just started eating my feelings away. And I gained probably 80 pounds within a year. And that was the big awakening that I wanted to change, because of all the extra weight, and then the fear of potential future health risks like diabetes, and that really ran in my family. So I didn't want to have to deal with that. So I started receiving one-on-one therapy counseling every week. But then I reached out to an organization called St. Christopher's Fund, and they kind of helped me on the track of changing my diet, nutrition, and just trying to get help for my health.
How much did changing your physical health impact your mental health?
Oh, tremendously. But I couldn't have done it if I wasn't working on my mental health as well. So they kind of went side by side.
Yeah, they're kind of cousins or siblings in that way, right?
Correct.
It is all connected.
Yeah, absolutely.
The trucking aspect of this, and I think we talk about this all the time, and you know this as well as anybody, that trucking is can be a difficult profession in a number of ways. There are a lot of stressors out there, physical, mental, emotional. Yep. I mean, it's all connected.
Very lonely. Very lonely. You feel like you don't have any support. You're just out there by yourself. And I thought about that too this week. That's kind of like an addiction. The loneliness, drivers like it and hate it at the same time, because I know for me, I don't like interaction with like a lot of people in like a group setting. So like having a job where you have a lot of coworkers, it's kind of frustrating because there might be drama or there's things that you can't control. When you're a driver and you're by yourself in that truck, you can control everything. It's just you and the truck and the open road. So, yeah, I mean, there's little things like you can't control other drivers on the road, or you can't control shippers and receivers. But for the most part, you're in that truck by yourself. So you enjoy that aspect of control. But at the same time, it's a double-edged sword because it's very lonely too. Well, you don't have much support.
And you get into a comfort zone.
Yes, that is correct.
It's real easy to do that.
Yeah.
Was it ever difficult, like you said, you doing counseling and getting help? With trucking, obviously you're not home. Making regular appointments in person was difficult. How did you navigate that?
A lot of over the phone, just phone calls with my therapist and with St. Christopher's Fund. Group settings. So within St. Christopher's Fund, we had a group that we talked on the phone every week. There was at the time there was about 10 guys that we would get on the phone and talk. And we had a facilitator that like ran the group and just talked about different ways we could change our healthy. The group was called Healthy Habits, and how we could change our lifestyle. But just having that connection to other drivers and just talking to them, because there'd be a lot of times where we just talk about life, and we'd spend 15, 20, 30 minutes talking about life instead of the group.
Was that, I mean, obviously it was helpful for you, but was that difficult for you? Because you talk about a lot of drivers kind of getting in their comfort zones, and I understand that as well as anybody. Having that community or developing that community, was that a difficult first step for you?
No, not at all. I mean, for most part, every trucking job I've ever had, there's always been a core group of guys that we talk on the phone regularly, almost daily, like other drivers that I work with within that company. So it was kind of an easy environment to navigate.
I'm curious, I think we've come a long way in society when it comes to mental health and therapy and counseling. What's your take on that as far as how far we've come and any like stigma that still surrounds that, especially, I know some people think, what's the point? Talking to somebody's not going to help. What's your take on that?
As far as society goes, I think it's split down the middle. I think it has grown a lot since, maybe the 80s or 90s, but there is still quite a few people that are hesitant of receiving help. But I think today there's a lot more resources than there was 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Do you feel like that stigma's, I feel like it is, and I could be wrong, and you probably have a better understanding of this, but it feels like to me that the stigma may perhaps be a bit stronger or still be there within the trucking community for whatever reason. Does that track with you, or do you have maybe a different perspective?
I think it's split down the middle. I think there are still a lot of drivers that have the old school mentality of, want to just work hard and hustle and grind through it and not worry about feelings or life problems. They just want to work. But because trucking now is so diverse, there's so many different walks of life within the trucking industry as far as gender, ethnicity, age. So I think that it is starting to open up and willingness to receive help.
Allen Lund Company is celebrating their 50th year. Thank you, drivers, for being a part of their story.
Penske is the trusted source for quality used trucks. Whether you search our website, call our sales staff, or bid at our online auction, you are sure to find the right used truck for your business. Visit PenskeUsedTrucks.com to view our inventory and learn more.
You had mentioned this earlier, but, talking to people, hearing from other people who've had similar struggles, have you had a chance, to share, like you said, your trauma resume with other people you've been able to help others?
Not on a platform like this, but one-on-one and in small group settings, absolutely, yeah. We've had a lot of really good discussions.
What are those like?
They're just shocked. I guess at first when I started talking about my experiences, they're shocked, but then you always find someone that has something similar where they've lost a loved one, and then you just start, going from there, open up conversation.
Is it like organic, like an organic conversation at a truck stop, or where are these kind of taking place?
No, it's just probably mostly with coworkers or peers. Yeah.
And they're open to having that conversation with you.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, that's a huge step forward.
I kind of feel them out. I know that I got to trust them. Mm-hmm. So like, it's not like on the very first time I meet them, it's after knowing them for a couple months.
Yeah.
Feel them out.
Let's talk about hey, nice to meet you. Let's talk about your trauma.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm curious, and I don't know if you've ever been asked this before, but I mean, some of the things you've experienced are like unimaginable for most everyone. How do you get through that? Like, have you been asked that? Like, how do you make it through?
Yeah, it is tough. My kids are definitely the motivation. I have a son who's 15 and a daughter who's 10. and they are definitely my biggest motivation. And then my wife is my hugest supporter. She's always been in my corner to cheer me on and give me advice and keep me afloat.
I want to make sure that we're kind of putting this in the right perspective or the right box or whatever, because you're saying so many important and helpful things, I think, for people out there who are going through. Everybody's going through something. Obviously, there are different degrees and different traumas and different things like that, but everybody out there is going through something, whether they realize it or not.
Correct.
When you talk about these conversations that you have with coworkers and other folks out there, kind of maybe opening their eyes a little bit or getting them to open up and start that process, I assume that you're giving them advice as well and not just listening to them. For people listening to this, and again, it could be anything. It could be the normal frustrations of the job. It could be something incredibly traumatic like some of the things that you've gone through or what have you. But what advice do you have for those people? What do you say to them in terms of, taking that first step and starting that journey? Because that, to me, it feels like that's maybe the hardest thing to do, is to come to those realizations and actually decide to do something about it.
The first step definitely is just find somebody that you trust and just open up to them and just share everything that's going on, whether you feel it's important or not. And to try to learn as much as you can about yourself and what you're going through, and then reach out to professional help. Whether it's for drivers, there's so many virtual resources online through your health insurance or whatever to get over the phone therapy. It's amazing nowadays.
I know you mentioned the St. Christopher's Fund. That's been a huge help for you in your physical health. Is that right?
That's correct, and emotional too. The coach that we have, she makes herself available almost 24/7. She's just a text away, and I've bounced a lot of stuff off of her that I was going through emotionally as well.
Is that a resource you think a lot of truckers know about?
No, absolutely not. I heard about it through Road Dog Trucking on Sirius XM radio. It was just an ad they played, but I don't think a lot of truck drivers know about it or use the resources like this.
Can you talk a little bit about it for people who aren't aware about how it works and what it is?
So their main focus is on helping drivers who are injured or going through health problems that aren't able to work. They help them pay their bills. And I believe they're based out in Knoxville, Tennessee, but they help all over the country. But then they also have a health and wellness side of the program, the organization, where they have smoking cessation classes to help drivers quit smoking, and also healthy habit and diabetes prevention classes.
How much you mentioned you've lost some weight, and I read somewhere you didn't have the healthiest of diets at one point not too long ago.
Oh, it was bad. It was really, really bad. Yeah, within the last 2 years, I've probably lost 75 pounds.
Wow.
Good for you.
And just mainly diet, changing my diet, eating less. It started off just eating less portions, but now that I've had a lot of success, I am definitely aware of what I'm eating. I'm trying to eat a lot more healthier than I was in the beginning. Because, my biggest thing was sugar. And so I replaced alcohol, drugs for sugar. And I was eating ice cream and milkshakes like crazy every single day when I was going through that depression. But now, I'll maybe twice a month I'll have a dessert or something like that. I'm really cautious and conscious of what I'm eating. And then I've also added in a lot of exercise through my job, which is the food service delivery. I get probably 10 to 15,000 steps a night at work. And then even when I'm not working, I'm just trying to keep myself moving and walking around the neighborhood or wherever, going on hikes with the kids.
We're talking about awareness about mental health. There's also been an increase in awareness about diet and exercise in recent years. And as well as anybody, being a truck driver, your options on the road are not always the best. It's a lot easier to pick up a Twinkie or a donut or whatever than it is to, meal prep and do things the quote unquote right way. Was that a big challenge for you when you started that journey? Kind of finding it was.
It really was. was a lot of meal prep, finding a lot of stuff that doesn't need to be refrigerated. So like beef jerky and protein bars are probably the best things that drivers can do. And water, just drinking water, and I'll do like flavor packets in my water, or just a lot of healthy options instead of soda.
Yeah. Well, and you're preaching the choir there. I just recently, I had a pretty serious cola and energy drink habit there for a little while, but
that's all you see at truck stops is energy drinks, and a lot of drivers go through those. And I've noticed too, now that we're on this topic, I've noticed I have so much more energy when I cut out all that sugar, because I was consuming sugar, drinking it and eating it. Now that I'm more cautious and conscious of what I'm putting in my body, I don't get those sugar crashes like I used to. And I could be alert for a lot more length of time.
Yeah, it really is breaking habits. Like mine, I since I was a kid, it was, instead of water, I'm just drinking cola, and I'm drinking soda and this and that instead of water. It really is one of these things that you talked about earlier about just kind of breaking these habits and breaking these trends that have been kind of ingrained in us for so long. It's difficult, but it's important that you kind of, come to that realization at some point.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
When we talk about like physical health, obviously that's something, maintaining your eating, moving, that's something you've got to keep doing. When it comes to mental health, do you feel like that's going to be something you consistently need to keep an eye on and kind of keep healing from?
Of course, yeah. I go through ups and downs. It's like a roller coaster, and I find myself slipping into, if I don't become aware of it or my wife doesn't keep me in check, I'll definitely slip back into depression and become lazy and start to draw away from her. So yeah, it's a huge, just ongoing battle. I think I'm always going to fight.
The biggest advice you would have, and again, coming from someone who's obviously talking the talk here, but you have walked the walk in recent years and really addressing a lot of these things. The biggest piece of advice that you would have for people who, are deciding to maybe turn over a new leaf and kind of try a new tact, what would you tell them?
You can't do it alone. You got to find a support group. You need to find other people that are like-minded and that want to help you change. Yeah, it's almost impossible to try to do it alone.
And as a first step,
no, you go ahead.
Go ahead, Ashley.
It just sounds like you mentioned your wife. You have a very good support system there.
Yeah. So my wife, the coach, and my peers at St. Christopher's Fund, they've been amazing help in supporting me.
That's great.
Just a phone call or text away. I know that 24 hours in a day, there's somebody I can reach out to.
And that's
wonderful.
That is wonderful. And it's also something that wasn't really available to people even 15, 20, 30 years. The internet, for all its bad things, it does have some good things too, and that you are able to connect more easily to people like you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
What, as we kind of pull the truck into the dock here, do you have any kind of final advice or final words or final thoughts for folks out there as they're dealing with all these things?
Final thoughts, absolutely. Big picture is, I think as a society, and I don't maybe put this onto the government or I'm not sure who, but we need to do some type of study of truck drivers, because the only study that I'm aware of was done back in 2010, and it was by the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, and it was titled Long Haul Truck Driver Health Survey, and they only interviewed 1,600 drivers. Now, today in America, there's 3.7 million drivers, and I just think that there needs to be some type of updated study trying to see what drivers go through, mental health and physical health, and then try to create some type of solution to help the future drivers that come into the industry.
That's interesting. You clearly have thought about this. When you talk about solutions, what do you think? And obviously we don't have the data that you're talking about there, but what do you think some of those solutions might look like?
I guess healthier eating options, that not just walking into a truck stop and grabbing something that's on a shelf. more restaurant style, healthier options, where it's the food's prepared for you, but at a decent cost too.
Yeah. Well, and also the mental health aspect of it too. I imagine that would be part of, a survey like that too.
And the mental health, more support for drivers as far as like virtual groups online or employers establishing wellness programs within their companies.
Yeah.
It sounds like you've worked for good companies that have been supportive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, been really good. There is one organization that I've been kind of working with, and it's kind of in the beginning stages, but it's called Project 61, and it stands for the truck drivers' average lifespan is 61 years old, and they're trying to make that number grow.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's a non-profit that's out there for long haul drivers.
It's in the very beginning stages, but hopefully I've been kind of working closely with them, and hopefully that it's going to grow and become something really good.
Well, that's important too. These organizations that understand what a truck driver's daily life is like and the struggles that they face and the challenges and so on and so forth. That's important. It's obviously important for organizations of every kind to reach out and try to put these things in place. But if they understand what truck drivers are dealing with, that's a huge plus.
Yeah. So I guess the final solution is making more drivers aware of programs that are available. That would be the biggest solution.
Well, and building a community,
Correct.
It used to, you talked about that, but it used to be, and I don't want to be like that old guy, yelling at the moon, but it used to be that you would have those conversations at truck stops and over the CB and whatnot. Yeah. And it was a real community. Yeah. It's still a community, obviously, but in so many ways, like society, I think, sadly.
It's extremely diverse, and the CBs are like non-existent anymore. I don't know very many companies or drivers that have CB radios.
Yeah. Again, like we're more connected than we ever were due to social media and the internet, but in so many ways, it feels like we're
so much more disconnected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct. That is
just
correct.
Sad.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Sean, I really appreciate, and Ashley, I know you feel the same way. You sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
And the goal with conversations like this, like the conversations you have with your coworkers and others, is to build that sense of community up. And I think you are doing a great job at doing just that. So we thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you guys so much. And if there's any drivers out there that reach out to you guys after this episode, feel free to send them my way, and I would love to talk to them.
We're going to give out your personal cell phone number here on the internet, Sean, now that you've offered that.
Awesome.
No, we won't do that.
No, we're just joking. But no, we will send them along for sure. Yeah, no, we really appreciate your time and your willingness to share.
Absolutely.
Attention all truckers, Dean Michael, the tax doctor here. I want to talk to you about those dreaded tax problems. I know you want to keep on trucking and not even think about them, but let's face it, they're not going away all on their own. You need professional help. I've been helping truckers put their tax problems in the rearview mirror for years. I can help you too. Call me now for a free consultation at 888-557-4020 or go to mytaxhelpmd.com. It's like I always say, keep your eyes on the road, I'll keep mine on the IRS. 888-557-4020.
When winter strikes, stay running and stay ready with House. Diesel Treat prevents gelling, but if your fuel freezes because it's untreated, Diesel Lifeline works fast to reliquefy and de-ice. House, prevention and rescue for your diesel.
And hey, Buck. How's it going? We've talked on the phone before, but I don't know if we've ever met face to face.
I've never done video with you guys at all.
No, you haven't.
No, I've always been hiding behind the phone. So anyway, it's good to see both of your faces. So
absolutely,
very, very cool.
Yeah.
All right. So we're into a new year, and of course, safe to say, maybe fair to say, any resolutions could be out the window. I'm curious your take, Buck, on resolutions, people making them. Do they stick to them? What do you notice overall?
Well, when you look at the research with resolutions, unfortunately, by sometime in February, probably mid-February, the New Year resolutions are out the window. And I think that for so many people, January the 2nd, January the 3rd, the New Year resolutions, they start to go out the window. So I'm not the biggest fan of the resolutions. If it works for you, then fantastic. And I have some clients that are like really into it. So then I really get into what are your resolutions and so on. But the reality of it is, if you just say, well, I'm going to do this different, I'm going to do that different, that tends to be a whole lot better if you make it less formal. So something that you can do instead of New Year's resolutions is called habit stacking. And that would be the idea of that you do something different. You do one new habit, and then you add another new habit to it. So for instance, when you park at the truck stop, you take a space all the way in the back. So then that way you get a little more exercise. So that's one habit. And then you end up drinking an extra bottle of water. And so you go into the truck stop, get an extra bottle of water. So that's habit number 2. And then you make that your new thing. And then you can add something else to it. So if it's food related, you can get some fresh fruit or something better at the truck stop. And then before you know it, you've done 3 things, and it's more in the lifestyle situation instead of just simply being, here's this huge New Year's resolution, make it or break it, and then you burn out on it.
Is it just the pressure that finally, the pressure of having a resolution and I've got to do this. This is my goal for the year. Well, is there a psychological reasoning behind, why they don't typically work out or they don't work out for a lot of people?
Well, that's a good question. And I think that all that pressure, yes, that's one of them. And plenty of times people's goals are so lofty that there's no way that they're going to be able to do that. It is not sustainable. So if you can park further back than usual, most times that you park, that's a doable thing. If you are going to lose 50 pounds in 3 months or even 6 months, well, some people can do that, but probably not so much. And you're probably going to get frustrated because you're a month in and you've only lost 5 pounds. And then you're like, forget it. So yeah, I think the New Year's resolutions, they're just too lofty and too cliche. And then we just kind of go back to our old habits.
I take it you don't make any resolutions?
I don't. No. I have back in the past, but at this point, again, I say, all right, well, if I want to be a little better in a certain area, then incremental. So I take my own advice here with the incremental things.
Yeah, I like that. I feel like oftentimes, and I know I've made this resolution, I want to lose weight, but no actual plan on how to do that.
No so magic wand.
I'm not super successful there. But I'm curious, do you see an influx of people wanting counseling in the new year? I know a lot of people want to better themselves. Do you see more people reaching out to you?
It is very odd. I would say that I would see a different type of people at the new year. So in October, November, you got the people who are feeling down about the holidays and that kind of stuff. And then also just the lack of daylight, they're coming in. So they're addressing those things. In January, so many times it's like the classic depression of I'm just out of gas, and maybe I also feel like more anxious, but I don't know why. I can't sleep and I don't know why. So those are the more classic depression things. And then maybe something bad happened over the holidays, and then that's weighing on the person. So it tends to be just a little bit different in January. And sometimes, unfortunately, people get so down and so upset that they don't even make a counseling appointment, or they drop out of counseling because life has gotten too hard. So yeah, that's commonly what I see. And then every once in a while I have the New Year's resolution person, and they're wanting pumped and they want help with goals, and therapists are famous for helping people to set goals and achieve them. So I always get a few people in that category, but it's more the depression, more the I'm out of gas kind of thing.
It has, and again, you have a lot of truck drivers who are your clients, a lot of truck drivers that you help. As you know, the past few years with the trucking market, it has not been good.
Mm-hmm.
That is an understatement, I think, for a lot of people out there, unfortunately. Have you been catching wind of that? Is that something that you're seeing and hearing a lot about? Over the past several months or a couple years now, with people just trying to make ends meet and struggling with that.
Right. Yes. Unfortunately. So yeah, that creates its own type of depression and stress. And there's no shortage of that. And yeah, it seems to only get worse over time. I remember years ago when they had the rule that you could only drive 11 hours, when that rule was implemented, that everyone was so upset with the regulations and that kind of thing. And it hurt plenty of drivers who were working much more than that and so on. So it seems to have just been a downhill slide since then. And yeah, there's tons of regulations. And then I don't really get too much sympathy from my clients, but I say, well, there's a lot of regulations in therapy, and I have to follow all of these sorts of rules and all this bureaucracy and all of that. So I try to relate to them to a degree. And yeah, my situation's different, but nonetheless, I know a little bit of what they're talking about, and it doesn't feel good, and it just makes a hard job even harder. So yeah, I do have some drivers that are in therapy pretty much just because of what the job does to you.
Yeah, I'm curious when it comes to, like freight rates and the fluctuation of it all, the uncertainty, how much of a stressor is like somebody's financial situation? Do you see that often?
I see it plenty of times. So yeah, and you're always chasing after the next load, and if the wheels aren't turning, you're not earning, and all of that, and it's very real, and that's what causes all the stress and causes all this burnout. So for the few drivers that have plenty of money in the bank and they've got all this cushion, they're less worried about it. But I mean, it still bothers people, still bothers drivers in that situation. So it's not like you just simply work an 8-hour day in a factory or in an office and you know what you're making every single day, and life is good and there is no worries. So whenever anything is by the load or by the piece, the term is piecework, P-E-A-C or P-I-E-C-E work. If anyone wants to Google that, piecework makes people really anxious, makes people really stressed out, whether the piece is a load that you're picking up or if you're working in a factory and you're making widgets and you get paid by the widgets. Piecework is something that really stresses people out, and they always want more, and it's hard to keep up.
It strikes me hearing you talk there, Buck, and I think we already know this, but I think you're kind of shedding a light on it here in that truck drivers, as you know, have a lot of stressors, and you talked about a number of them there. And when you talk about one thing, one stressor here or one stressor there, I think for the most part, humans are pretty adaptable and they can adjust and get through whatever that obstacle may be. But you're talking about so many different things here, and especially now as we're talking about seasonal depression and, all the other things that you kind of let off talking about, those things can pile up really quickly. And it's really easy, I think, to all of a sudden feel overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
When you are talking with people, and hopefully we can help some people out there right now as we're talking to them, but what do you tell them? What are some things that people can be doing aside from, resolutions and losing weight and all that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Just kind of getting to a more peaceful place when dealing with all of these things. So many of them are out of their control, which is also a feeling of helplessness. Mm-hmm. What would you tell those people? What are some things that they can do to, help themselves get over that hump?
Yeah, well, with all of these factors that's going on, and Scott, I think that you bring up a really good point with that. It is kind of the how do you eat an elephant? And well, the answer is one bite at a time. So I think that you have to take your bites in this situation. So, all right, well, the base of everything is making sure that you're getting enough sleep and that you're eating a reasonable quality of food. So if you're not doing that, then life is already really, really hard. So you look at that base. And then if you have relationship problems, that'd be the next rung up, and you want to do the best that you can to make more phone calls, do more video calls, have a little more home time, whatever you need to do to work out that relationship stuff. And then you just continue to go up. And when you're dealing with the bureaucracy and tax times coming and all of that, just make a list of all these things that weigh on you and go ahead and order them as to what's the most important. And then you just continue to knock it out one at a time. And so many times when there's that whole pile of everything on top of you, it all seems like an emergency, but most of it can wait. So you look at, all right, well, really, maybe I'm only dealing with 2 or 3 things that really need to be dealt with now. Then the rest can wait, and then you can continue to take one bite at a time, and then you can make some progress. So it's hard, but it puts it in perspective.
Dispatch, I picked up that load of steel, so I'm ready to roll.
Sounds good. Remember, we're getting paid by weight, so make sure to use a cat scale.
I wouldn't weigh anywhere else.
Forgiveness, accuracy, weigh your truck on a cat scale.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Can you talk about, the importance and I guess how significant of a change like talk therapy can be? I'm sure you've seen it, obviously, in your career, but how beneficial can that be for somebody?
Well, of course, I'm biased because I'm a therapist, but the reality of it is that talking just helps. And when you look at drivers in general, they don't talk a whole lot. So loneliness is a factor. And the more that you talk, the better that you feel. Humans are social creatures. And if you're a solo driver, you're not really being too awfully social. If you do have, if you are on a team, then whoever you're with in that cab all of the time, that's a good thing. Usually, but sometimes there can be some friction there. And maybe you need to hear from someone different that is outside of the truck. So the more you talk to people, the more that it helps. And if you have a specific issue that you want to work on, a therapist is helpful because you're able to talk with them about that. And then there can be discussion of goals, or you can just simply get it off your chest. And a therapist isn't so much of I'm going to tell you what you need to do. And then, and the therapist doesn't get in there and talk about themselves a whole bunch, like sometimes friends or just random people at truck stops might. So a therapist really helps to listen. And then if you do have a situation where you do need some medication, or you need some specialized ways to deal with anxiety, depression, relationship problems, whatever, the therapist would have some ideas if the client is open to ideas. And the last thing that I'll say is just the act of talking out loud is something that just feels good. And the fact that you hear yourself talking, sometimes you work through your own problems. And I know that kind of sounds odd, but if you think about it, even just talking things through with friends, sometimes you say things and you say, oh, I can't believe I just said that. Oh, that sounds so bad. Or you come up with the idea of, oh, I just solved my own problem. This is what I need to do.
It strikes me, too, that I think, and maybe you can correct me here, I feel like there is still a stigma attached to therapy among a lot of people out there. Is that getting any better, do you feel? Because when you talk about therapy, I think sometimes people have a kind of a negative reaction to it for whatever reason. Is that getting a little better? I feel like it is, but I think you'd probably have better perspective on that.
I think that it is getting better every day. And you can Google this and actually get some real information about when the pandemic started, that the stigma became less, and I saw that. It's difficult for me as a therapist to know because, well, I guess people who buy into the stigma of mental health, I'll never hear from them. So I guess I talk to more of the people that are want to improve their mental health. So yeah, stigma still exists. It's getting better every day. And my mom, she's retired. She tells me from time to time about how the stigma is getting so much better because she talks with all of her retired friends and so on. And they used to be more negative toward the fact that I was a therapist, and they're like more happy for me in the last few years. And then my mom tells me that. So that's my unscientific research, is that my mom continues to tell me that there's less stigma of mental health. So there you go.
Hey, that counts.
Yeah,
we'll take that. Yeah.
You'd kind of touched on this earlier about like the regulations that obviously truckers have to follow, but that you also have to follow. How does that work? Obviously, a truck driver's on the road, going through different states. If they want to do therapy, which is easy to do, even more so now, whether it be via video or over the phone, how does that work when it comes to insurance and who they'd be allowed to talk to? Not allowed, but you know what I mean? Like,
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, well, Ashley, I'll tell you what you've touched on is the welcome to my world of the regulations, and then I try to get my clients to feel sorry for me. Long story short, is what I'm about to say is getting better day by day, and like another year from now, another 2 years, it'll be so much better than what I'm about to say. It depends on the state as to where the provider is. So I'm in Indiana, and unfortunately, I can only talk to people that are residents of Indiana. So my driver clients are Indiana people, and then that keeps me legal. The good news is that already roughly half or at least a third of the United States has therapists in various states. You can find this online, that the provider can be licensed in roughly a third of the country. So it's hit and miss at this time. And it's called the Psy Compact, PSY-COMPACT, and you can Google that, and there's being more states added as time goes on. So in a few years from now, it won't matter what state you're in and what state the therapist is in. So at this point, it's hit and miss. So what you need to do is Google your own state, and then Google, can I have a provider talk to me from a different state? And that changes all of the time. So that is the very difficult to explain and even more difficult to follow bureaucratic situation that us therapists are in at this point.
And that, I think that's exactly what you're asking about, Ashley, because if you're already feeling, and I've gone through this myself, if you're already feeling overwhelmed and you're feeling like you're under pressure and you even want to find somebody to talk to and help, then you got to go through this process of trying to figure out who you can talk to and, do they fall under this plan or that plan, or how much is this going to cost me? It is complicated, and I'm not trying to discourage anybody from starting that process. But to that point, Buck, it sounds like kind of with the stigma maybe melting away a little bit, we're going to see some momentum in the direction of making it easier for people to reach out. And there are a bunch of apps out there. I always hear them advertised as well. I don't know if you'd recommend people checking those out. And we don't need to name them necessarily, but again, it's overwhelming right now if you're actually someone who wants to find somebody to talk to.
It is. And I can make it a little bit easier with the advice on how to find somebody. So with the apps, honestly, there's mixed reviews. So if you do your research, you'll see how with these apps, sometimes it's really good. Other times there's quality concerns. So you can try different things and see what works for you. The fail-safe is if you get a therapist in the state that you live in, then it will work for sure. The concern is that sometimes, plenty of times, there's a lack of therapists and you might not be able to find somebody. But with enough research, there's a good chance that you can. And then if you want to use your insurance, well, if you look on the website of your own insurance, then it lists providers. So then you go down the list and then essentially you're looking for a provider on your insurance panel that does provide teletherapy. So that would be often the place to start and the most simple. When you look for, if you're looking for the whole side compact situation and all of that, then that might be that you want somebody that's more specialized or something and you need to find somebody out of your state, then it gets tougher.
And I mean, obviously you specialize in trucking and talking with truck drivers. Have you had truck drivers from other states reach out to you hoping that they could?
Unfortunately, all the time, and then I have to tell them no, and then I actually have a template set up that I send that explains what I just explained to you guys. So, and if I happen to know a therapist in their state, then I definitely give the number. So that's the downside. I mean, years ago, this really wasn't an issue at all. And then the regulations got tighter and tighter. So this problem did not exist years ago. And then I'm guessing 5 to 10 years from now, this problem will no longer exist. But still, that's a long ways away.
We're talking, I think, general advice. And again, everybody is different in their own ways and dealing with their own issues or problems or frustrations or challenges. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And you gave some great advice, I think, earlier when you talked about, reaching out and talking to someone. Even if it's not a therapist, if it is a friend who maybe interrupts you a little bit too much and talks about their own stuff, that's better than nothing, right?
Exactly.
Reaching out and having that community, right?
Yes. So we never want to make it so a client only talks to the therapist and the therapist does 100%. The therapist is the helper. So we want everyone to have a significant social network, people that they can call that don't charge them money and things like that. So, if you can't find anyone, therapy is a good thing. Or again, if you need that very specialized help that you're not able to get from anyone else, then you talk with a trained therapist. Plenty of times therapy is a shorter term solution. For some people it's long term, but often if you're stuck on something, talk to a therapist a couple of times, half a dozen times, and then you get pointed in the right direction and plenty of people can figure it out from there.
And then if anybody is listening in Indiana specifically or based in Indiana, they can reach out to you as well. You've got a website. You want to talk about that just briefly?
Absolutely. It's truckertherapy.com. And yes, unfortunately, the client would need to live in Indiana. And call me up and we can talk about whatever concerns there are. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yes, great advice. We really appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right. Our thanks again there to Buck Black. We have mentioned this before in the show notes. We're going to have links to a number of things. Buck Black, a few of the things that he mentioned there, and including the St. Christopher Fund's Healthy Habits for the Long Haul Health and Wellness Program, which Shaun Lezer talked about. Thanks to him as well for sharing his story.
Yes.
Helpful in so many ways. Mm-hmm. I think it does help to know that, you are not alone in dealing with these things.
Yeah, it's definitely encouraging for sure.
Also encouraging, we should mention this. We have a deal, I guess, for friends of the show. I guess we could call it that.
Yeah.
If you are looking to join OOIDA or renew your membership, friends of the show.
We would love to have you.
We would love to have you. Friends of the show can now do that at a discount, $25 for 1 year. You can sign up online. If you do that, you just want to make sure that you choose OOIDA Podcast under the How Did You Hear About Us drop-down menu. Also, if you call in, you can obviously do it that way as well. Just mention to the person you're talking with that you are being referred by the OOIDA Podcast. You'll get that $25 membership fee there. Pretty good discount, pretty good deal.
That is a pretty good deal.
So if you're thinking about joining or have been thinking about joining or are looking to renew, this is a good deal, and we encourage everybody to do that. And, of course, we thank you for listening as well and your support.
Yeah. And next week's show coming up, it's a fun one. I've learned a lot more about bass fishing than I've ever known before. We've got Corbin Healy and Sam Huckabee. They are the guys who run the Science of the Strike YouTube channel podcast. They don't just bass fish. They have learned so much as far as the science of fishing. And so they do different videos and a lot of research. They do a lot of research. And so we talked to them about that, how that got started, and learn a few things about bass fishing and bass that I never knew.
They've forgotten more probably in the last week than you or I have ever known about bass fishing. Yeah, their YouTube channel, their show is really, really cool because they do, as you said, go into the deep recesses of bass fishing about the colors that bass see.
It's not just casting a line. There's a lot to it.
Yeah, it is the science of the strike, and they literally go into the science behind, what colors bass see, barometric pressure, a long list of things.
Their memories.
Memories,
which
yes.
I thought,
and
very
they're
interesting.
A lot smarter than we realized. So great conversation there. We'll look forward to that next week. Also, we're going to catch up with Marty Ellis, the driver of the Spirit of the American Trucker. We'll talk to him about maybe fishing, maybe hobbies, a little bit of what he's seeing out there and dealing with. So looking forward to that, and we hope you join us next week here on Trucking with OOIDA. Thanks for listening, Ashley.
Thanks for listening. Stay safe out there, and thank you for all you do.